Well, hello, everybody. Good evening. This is Barbara Perkins, Coach Barbara, and I am coming to you live from Atlanta again. Here I am this evening on my phone. I'm sitting in front of my computer. We just had, okay, Linda just said, "Are you ready?" So hopefully I'm on. Please let me know because I am sitting in front of my computer and nothing is happening. There's always something technical, but you know what? God is good, because what I did was I brought my phone with me just in case I had a little difficulty. So let me know if you can see me. I am doing this from my cell phone, and I'm going to try and keep it this way. How is that? Can you see me? Hey, Deborah, I see you. So just let me know if you can see me and hear me good, because I'm doing this now from my cell phone. Linda, are you there? Thank you for being here. Tammy Lee, I see you. Thank you for coming in. And as I said, I'm having some difficulty, but I hope that this is working. So once again, good evening and welcome back to Real Talk with Love. I'm your coach today, Coach Barbara, and it is always my joy to be here in front of you for a few moments. Today I am excited about being able to come and have this conversation. We've been talking now. This is our third week. This is actually our fourth week. And I'm really happy that we can take the time to come in and have this real talk, but do it in a loving way, in a way that we can digest it. I don't want to give you too much, so it's intentional that this is only 30 minutes. But I'd like for you to ask me questions if you like. Before we get started, I would like for us to pause. Charlene and Juanita and Ellen and Deborah, let us all pause for a moment as other people are coming in, and let's really just honor the lives that have been lost in these last 30 days, if you will, all across the world, but certainly here in the U.S. Let us really just think about those families that are grieving the loss of their loved ones. And so we honor them, we pray for them, we lift them up, we encourage them. And I pray that those who are suffering right now, who are ill, who may have just gotten the news that a family member has tested positive for COVID-19, or they themselves may have tested positive, I pray that they are well soon and home with their families. So we just pause and lift them up right now. Thank you for coming in. Once again, as I said, for those of you who've been here for 3 weeks, you know that at the end of this, I try to give out a little gift. And so I want you to stay. If you don't mind, as you're coming in, would you hit the share button, please? Share this so that some of your friends may also take in some of the information that we're going to go over this evening. Share it, if you will. And then when it's over, you can even start a watch party if you want with friends of yours. You can just suggest that they come in and watch with you. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you. Stay with us. What I want to do, though, if this is your first time, type in the comments "first time," because at the end of this, we'll give you a gift. At least we'll give one person a really nice gift at the end of this. So if this is your first time with us watching, please type in "first time." And for those of you who have been here for a while, listen, if you received a gift from me in the last week or so, because I sent out several gifts, if you received a gift, would you type in the comments "gift received"? That way I know that the mail is getting to you. I'm only going out once a week. I go out on Wednesdays, so hopefully those of you who I mailed gifts to, you received them. So again, thanks, hey Liz, Brio, and Wendy, and Jacqueline. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that very much. This is Real Talk with Love. Today we're going to talk about grief. I'm not going to be with you long on this subject because what I want to do is open the conversation. Just start it. Grief, we're all feeling some level of grief. Whether it's the loss of a job, loss of finances because we're not working right now, loss of community because we're sheltered in, whether it's a loss in a relationship, and then certainly the loss of loved ones. We're all feeling it. We're hearing it. And so it's a conversation that maybe we don't really want to talk about, but I think today, for these next 20 minutes or so, at least open it up. What I don't want to do is I don't want to go so deep into it. Now, I've been a coach for 20 years. I am a seasoned, professional, veteran coach. And I know one of the things that I absolutely do not want to do is to bring you to a place where it's a trigger and it's too much, and then you don't have the support to help you through it. So what I'd love to do, I'd love to open it up, start the conversation, and then leave you with some things you can do if you are in a place of grief right now, or if you know someone who's in a place of grief right now, because it is a tough time, and I don't see it getting too much better anytime soon based on the news. What I can assure you, though, is that you can get through it. You can get through it. And for those who may be, hi Shadana, thank you. For those who may be if you're by yourself at home, as a coach, what I try to do is I try to coach myself out of a job, actually. So the 7 most important topics that come up in my practice over these 20 years, I've tried to address in a small way. So I have a book on coaching yourself through grief. This is one of the books. This is actually the second book in a series of 7. And this coaching yourself on grief book, I wrote in 2011, when grief almost took me out. I literally thought my heart was broken in half and that it will never ever heal. It was the loss of my mother. When my mother died in 2011, I remember so clearly on Martin Luther King weekend, and I was in the middle of a 2-day gig. And I knew that our mother had been sick for over a year. So I knew that she was ill, but certainly you could never plan for the death of a loved one. And thank you, Cheryl. I see your message. But when I got the call on that holiday morning, early morning, that my mom had died, I shut my emotions off because I knew that had I dealt with it in the moment, I had gone to such a low space that I really didn't think I could get back. And so I got through 2 days, a day and a half of not crying, not grieving. In fact, I didn't even tell the folks I was working with what had happened. But when it did, when I was able to move from that stage of grief, and there are 5 stages of grief that are critical. The first stage is denial in most cases. Like now, with this COVID-19 and people are just dying. I mean, Within 2 and 3 days, they're sick. They feel sick one day, they get checked out, and before you know it, they're gone. I mean, it's almost like there's no setup for it. And not that we are promised that, but it's such a shock to the system. And when you think of even just in one state, like the state of New York, last night, over almost 700 people are dying in a day. And then when you add that up around the country, it is absolutely overwhelming. So there are people who are going through this first stage of grief, which is denial. It is completely, this can't be happening right now. I cannot believe this is happening. And then the second stage of grief is anger. And I'm sure some of us are going through that as we're looking at this and we're saying, what is going on? And we're worried about the testing. Why are people not getting what they need? And why are the first responders not protected with the kind of gear that we know they should be able to have? So we go through that. We may even go through the third stage of grief, which is bargaining, where we start to say to God, please don't let this be so. I had someone say to me just today that a family member, a close family member, had passed, and the body had to be sent to the home state. And one of the members of the family did not, it took about 3 or 4 days, maybe even 5 days. And one of the members of the family asked the question, are you sure? Are you sure it's my family member? One of the stages of grief is this bargaining. Please, God, let this be a mistake. This cannot be happening. And then depression sets in. And then finally, we get to a point where there's no other choice, and we have to accept that it's happened. These things can happen in such rapid time that your emotional self, which is where grief lies. So I'm going to talk a little bit soon about the difference between grief and when you're in a mourning state. Let's talk a little bit about how long grief lasts. Because people say, for example, I just told you my mother died in 2011. And I was preparing for this and I was teary. I was reading something in my book and it was pertaining to when she got ill. And I was teary. And that was 2011. Grief is different for everybody. It could be 4 days or 4 years. But what I know is that we have to allow that emotion to come through so that it can pass through us, and then we can get to the mourning phase. Because grief, if it sits in your body indefinitely, without your doing anything about it, there are some things that can happen, like a change in your diet, high blood pressure, something that is really called broken heart syndrome. That is when you are perpetually sad, when you feel like there is absolutely no way I'm going to get over it. I was speaking again with someone today about the loss of a child, an adult child, but no parent prepares for that. No parent prepares for that. I can't even imagine what that pain must feel like. But what I do know is that pain cannot stay in your body. There has to be a process for how you get that out to the mourning phase. And the mourning phase is the external way that you begin to accept and deal with it. And the external phase, the mourning phase, is what gets you moving forward. Are you with me? Send me hearts and send me notes if you're with me. because this is difficult, and some of you may be going through it right now. Thank you, Jordan and Sonia and Karina, for being here. Some of you may be going through this right now. So there are some things you can do when you're in this phase. Your body may tell you to stop breathing, stop eating, but you have to take in a lot of fluid, preferably water. You have to take in a lot of fluid. I suggest that you go and you have comfort food. When you're in a state of grief, it's difficult to start thinking about your diet and how healthy the diet is going to be, and whether you should have a green salad versus a good bowl of chili, right? So comfort food is important. And then having a place to speak it out, to tell someone, to talk about what it's feeling like, how you feel. When you speak it out, it helps you to get it out so that you can go to the next action, which is to honor the loss. And that goes hand in hand with acceptance. You honor the loss. You get to a point where you say, and I so love, I don't know if she's watching, but I know she will watch later, my publisher, Willa Robinson. Bless Willa's heart. She lost her husband 2 weeks ago. I think it's been almost 2 weeks now. And she shared with me, and I know that she doesn't mind if I share it with you. She said it is a moment by moment process. I think about getting up from the bed, walking to my kitchen, getting something to eat. I have to think about it. And that's all that is required of you. If you're going through this stage, what's required of you is to be as gentle with yourself as you can. Call for help. There might be family members who are going through the same thing you're going through, and they may not be able to support you because everyone is different. This is whether it's a loss of a loved one, whether it's your job, there are people who are so worried about whether or not they will be able to feed their families. And there's a form of grief that sets in, closely followed by a level of stress. And we want to make sure that you are gentle with yourself when you're going through that. Hi, Alma and Clarice and Gwen. Thank you for being here. And Ginger, thank you for being here. Let me know if this is resonating with you. What I would say to you is grief is real. When you are taking it in all day long, the news is not good. When we're taking it in, when we're worried about we've lost our jobs, there might have been a breakup. You know, a woman called me about a week ago and she said, we had already decided to break up. And then this happened. And now we are sheltered together. That's difficult. How do you stay in the same space? And then someone said, you know, maybe I shouldn't have left because I wouldn't be by myself now, even though it was not a great relationship. I'd rather be with somebody than to be by myself, grieving the loss of a loved one, grieving the loss of a relationship, grieving that job that you had, maybe for 20 years, 30 years, and the way they closed the doors didn't appear to be sensitive to you, grieving that. The next thing, shifting, because I know you can get through it. I know you can get through it. It's a moment by moment, as Willa said, moment by moment process. then you shift gears into joy. And I know that seems like it might be a long way away from grief to joy, but it really isn't so far away. For those of you who may have a spiritual practice, this might be the time when you lean even more heavily on that practice, where you find support from a group of folks who may share the same spiritual practice that you have. Even if you yourself have not lost a loved one, it's important, I think, for all of us to know what's going on in the lives of people. Because someone passed 6 months ago doesn't mean that your friend or your family member is going to pick up the phone and call you. They may not just be able to do that. Thanks, Angela, for watching, and Tammy Lee. Your loved ones may not be able to do the things that they were doing before. Your friend, she's still your friend. They just may not be able to respond to you in the way that they used to. If you're going through this, when you shift into joy, you lean on your spiritual practice, you find a group that you can speak with, find positive, inspirational books that can help you little bit at a time. When I was going through this grief, my whole family, when our mother died, my sister gave me a CD, and it was the song, I Hope You Dance. For those of you who are Facebook friends, I put it up on my timeline this morning because I was feeling that grief moment. And that song gives me joy. Because for me, it's now the song that I put on when I think about my mother and how she would want me to feel right now. How she would want me to be living my life fully, even in the midst of missing her. But I would honor her. I would honor her by being in joy, by shifting from sadness and grief. Hey, Lisa Cagnolati, and Simone and Jessica and Gwen. I would shift into joy by honoring my mother, by putting on a good memory, marking a moment. Another thing I would do, my mother loved red snapper, and she liked the whole fish. So for the first 2 years after she died, I was sad. Every time January rolled around, I was sad. And then by the 3rd year, I said to myself, I can't do this. I'm not going to live the rest of my life marking January 17th as a day for me to be sad. So what I started doing was going out and having myself a whole red snapper. And if I'm in Florida, that's what me and my sister would do. We would go and have a whole red snapper, and the biggest one we can get, and sit there and talk about how our mother would so enjoy eating that fish. She lived in Los Angeles with me and Stanley for a long time, and we would go and get tacos from the taco truck. So sometimes I would just go and have tacos in honor of my mother. How would you honor your loved one? Marking those moments, marking those memories, shifting from sadness and grief to joy. How would you do that? Benchmark your progress. I benchmarked my progress. 3 years of sadness, I said, okay, January 17th cannot be doomsday for you every year. So I did one other really big thing. I started writing down all the good memories. Journaling, writing down the stories that I wanted to keep alive. For some of you, it may be too early to do that, but you can write down your feelings. In this little book, it's called Coaching Yourself Through Grief. And you can, if you'd like to have this book, I have some, I'd be happy to send them to you. I'll put on the link when I'm done. I'll put my website on where you can go and order the book. But I'll be happy to send it to you. It's just a little pocket read, but it has all of these little tips for moving you forward, shifting you from grief to mourning and then into joy. Hey Brandy, hey Roberta. So shifting from that grief moment where it's all bottled up inside and it hurts and you think your heart is just going to break. And thank you, by the way, Linda, on my team, she put on the link how you can get the book. But when you shift into joy, you give yourself one day at a time where you move at your own pace. There is no expectation of you to rush through grief. There is no expectation. You be gentle with yourself. You have a group of people who would understand what you're going through. And sometimes it's important to have a group, because if you have one person, the one person may get tired or weary or just not know how to help you. And then I will say to you, if none of this is enough, because sometimes it is overwhelming and too much, even with the help, you may have to get professional help. You may have to find yourself a coach or a therapist to walk you through it for a short period of time. But give yourself that gift of being gentle with yourself, of honoring your loved one, talking to someone about it, making sure that you are in acceptance and not in denial, because if you get stuck in denial, grief gets stuck in your body. So you don't want to get stuck there. And you certainly don't want to be stuck in anger. I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions, thank you, Deborah. My big sister's on. She said the tips are good. Thank you very much. You and I have walked through this. We lost our father first, our mother, and shortly thereafter 2 brothers. It's difficult. And then I lost my mother-in-law. Juanita asked a question, is there a way to help someone who's in denial? Absolutely. It's a slower walk for some people. We can't rush it. It could be 4 days. It could be 4 years. Oh, Willa is watching. Bless you, Willa. I love you. I used your name. You are such a strong, brave, vulnerable, beautiful soul, married for 55 years to the love of your life, and sent him off with such great memories and such love. And I shared some of your story. For those of you who are in the throes of grief, I will leave you with this. I do have a spiritual practice, and I'm not trying to put what I believe on you. But I certainly believe that there is a God who is a comforter and who has promised us a life of joy, even in the midst of what we see. What we see is not pretty, but I will ask you to plant something in your heart every day that you can smile about. Take in those things that will give you joy while you're sheltered in. Have your quiet moments to yourself when you can reflect on the memories of, whether it's a job, the good times on the job, the people that you met, the way the job supported you and helped you to take care of your family. Whether it's a love relationship, if someone, and Iyanla Vanzant always says this, people have the right to change their minds. And if someone said, they're no longer willing to be in relationship with you, bless them and send them on. Because why would you want to be in a relationship where you're not wanted? That's not a good feeling. So what I would say is you can move from that grief. You can move from that. Shift into high gear. And I'm going to call the high gear joy. Shift into high gear. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your questions. Those that I may not have gotten to, I will try to get to them. If you are going through grief right now, please try and call someone if you need help. Again, I have this little book that you can order, but there are so many other things that you can read to help you through it. Order the book from me. I'll get it out to you as soon as possible. Angela says, how do I handle... Oh, it went off the screen. I'm so sorry. Jessica said, shift into high gear. Yes, let's shift into joy. So thank you for being here. I hope that I answered some of your questions. Now what I want to do is I want to give someone this book. And I asked you when we first came on, if this is your first time here, will you please type first time watching so that I will be able to send you a book. And then I have a CD that I want to send. Actually, I have 2 of these I'm going to send. This is Tammy Lee Jules. She is my goddaughter. She is an international poet and writer and all-around wonderful woman who has, this is her 2nd CD, and I'm going to gift this CD. Oh, good, I see a lot of first. I'm going to gift this CD. I'm going to go back through the thread and I'm going to see the person who was the most active in the chat. And I'm going to gift this to you. I'm also going to give one more thing. If you are going through a loss right now, a significant loss, and you're having a difficult time, I want you to type in the comments, difficult time. I'm going to reach out to you and I will offer you a 1-hour session with me. Okay? So if you're going through, if you've lost a loved one, and it's difficult for you right now, just type in there, difficult time, and I will reach out to you. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Shift into joy. Good night. Thank you, everyone.